Hello, all. Welcome to Women Talk Construction. I'm here, one of your co-hosts, and I'm with Christy Powell, my other co-host. Hey,
Hey,
Christy.
hey.
How are you? And we have an absolutely wonderful guest on today. And actually, this is his second appearance on Women Talk
Yes.
Construction. And just a little bit about him. He is a longtime professional carpenter and tradesman. And he is an awesome YouTuber. You need to definitely check him out. He has over 895 thousand subscribers by now, 260 videos. He produces high quality video content about carpentry,
Yes.
woodworking, tools, of all sorts, and DIY tips, which he does for especially for us homeowners who need to know how to
Yes.
fix something, right?
Yep.
So we have Ethan James,
Hey,
the
Ethan.
Hey.
and he actually goes by the Honest
Yeah.
Carpenter. Yeah, yeah, which you can see on the shirt.
If you're
So
watching on YouTube, you
If
can
you're
see his
watching,
shirt. It's pretty cool.
thanks.
it is pretty cool. We need one of those.
Yeah, y'all need
Yeah.
like a hardcore logo, you know? You got one, right?
No,
I feel like I've
we
seen a
need
WTC.
yours. We can wear your. We
Oh, you
wear
need
We want to
one.
wear your
others.
t-shirt
Oh
too.
yeah, I'll send them. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
well, tell our audience more about yourself then, since I opened it up.
Absolutely. No, like Angela said, my name's Ethan James. I host the Honest Carpenter YouTube channel, and I was a self-employed carpenter for somewhere about 12 to 15 years before that. And I was an employed carpenter working mostly with my dad's crews and a couple other crews in the Raleigh area, starting pretty far back in maybe the mid to late 90s. Uh, I was a kid who kind of grew up on job sites, got drafted into the construction industry at a young age, did a lot of it before the age of 20 or 21, left for a while, worked primarily in like bookstores, and then came back to construction probably in I don't know, maybe 2008, 2009. Did it ever since, and then got into content creation, and that's kind of where I've been ever since, which brings me here today, where I'm
we
happy to be.
appreciate we appreciate that content creation. I've
Oh
been sending
yeah.
your YouTube videos to a lot of folks that ask how to do
Perfect.
certain things. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
of course I can tell them, but it's so much easier to show them a video, like a really well done video, which is what you have on your YouTube channel. So we appreciate that.
absolutely.
Um, so let's talk about some new and exciting things that are going on in your life right now since the last time we had you on. Talk about the new house and the new shop space,
Yeah.
which is the
So
first time you've done a recording in your shop today,
yeah,
right?
I don't think I've done any interviews yet in here. For anybody who watches the channel, it's going to look remarkably like the old spot with a couple changes. It's not totally done yet. I actually have heating and air now in the form of a mini fridge.
Yay.
That's a nice upgrade. But this was an unexpected change right at the end of spring, basically. Again, if anybody watches, you'll know I've kind of been on and off YouTube for about the last year, splitting my time between YouTube videos and online course creation. And I was wrapping up like my second online course back in April or May, was gonna hop right back on YouTube and kind of get into promotion and let people know about it and everything, when all of a sudden I lost my old shop studio that you'll recognize from probably 3 years of my content. It was a rental, and
Mm,
Mm.
there's some maybe some disagreement about what the terms were of that rental space. But unfortunately, when you lease something, it's not
yeah.
yours. And that shop got pulled into a larger renovation that was happening on an adjacent property. And I had to be out at like a moment's notice. I
Wow.
Wow.
think I had
Mm.
24 days to literally have everything out.
Mm.
And
Wow, that's a lot.
it,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty terrifying, because it's not easy to set something like this up, and I simply can't do what I do without a shop studio space. So of course that led to a house hunting scramble the next morning. Got in touch with some really great realtors I know here in Greensboro, NC. This was actually like the first house we walked through together. had
Nice.
this detached garage behind it, and it was in a good location. I said, let's go for it. And it was basically mine by the end of the week. And
Wow.
yeah, I've spent the
That's a
last,
great realtor.
yes, I mean, we moved pretty aggressively on it, which is terrifying.
Yes.
But because it had business implications, I could not,
Right.
I couldn't do it any other way. Essentially, I already had a place to live, but my business needed a place to live. And finally one that nobody could run me out of on short notice,
Yeah.
which I've never had
Nice.
before. So the only problem is it wasn't quite move-in ready. It's been about a 4-month remodel. Not that I've been working on it nonstop, because I've done some content creation too, as well as some other things.
Yeah.
But finally, I'm probably a week away from having it fully finished and ready to shoot more content. And you know, I'm already back on YouTube, but there's more YouTube to come in the weeks
Nice.
ahead. So
Next
Well,
time I
you-
come to Raleigh, I'm going to come visit you. I want to see
Please
what it
do.
looks like in person.
Please do. I'd love to have you by.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you've already mentioned it a little bit. We talked about your online courses, and of course, you have now a really cool website, which is where you can see a lot of your content, or at least start viewing some of this. Can you share with our audience more about what you're doing in that space? Because it's really needed, right? Especially for some of maybe the younger kids that maybe want to learn more that their teachers can't teach them.
Yeah.
This might benefit them.
Absolutely.
And we're hearing that the colleges aren't teaching what these GCs
Yeah, oh,
are
yeah.
expecting.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so having your content like that is going to be really helpful.
Yep. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. You know, I kind of announced maybe a year and a half ago at this point that I was going to start to dedicate some of my time to making online courses. And my buddy Steve Ramsey put me onto that. Great woodworker. He was like the original woodworker on YouTube, and he's made some great courses that have helped a ton of people. And when he first started telling me about it, right away, I kind of caught on to it, because I was like, one of the frustrations with YouTube is that you can't really teach anything in a linear way because of how the algorithm works, and the fact that you should always focus on putting things into bite-sized chunks, but it's you get more like pulled in a bunch of different directions to kind of chase the views and chase the algorithm. And if you don't do it that way, often you just won't grow and you won't survive on YouTube. So you get this real kind of crazy diversity in your content, which is good and it helps people, but it only helps people in this like scattershot fashion where they never know what they're getting the next week, because I never know what I'm generally going to make the next week. And I always felt that like I could teach all this stuff in a more linear way, starting at for like people who know like literally nothing and building them up step by step until they actually knew the fundamentals of carpentry.
That makes sense.
Woodworking, you know, tools. My first course was called Power Tools Explained, and it's literally just about how to use the 20 most important power tools, which is bedrock information for carpentry. And courses are really the way to do that, because it's more like taking someone through a class rather than just one video after another. It's more like building a curriculum that they can follow. It's all video oriented, and then it has PDFs and documentation to back it up. But this kind of let me create my own classroom on the internet and put it on my website where I can kind of control everything, and I don't have to play the algorithm game. And people who want to learn things in that straightforward fashion and really build it piece by piece come to one spot, and it's kind of all there. So as time goes on, I'm just going to keep stacking courses, and they're really going to be in kind of a ladder fashion where you the very first ones are the absolute most basic stuff, and then everything subsequent gives you a bit more and a bit more and a bit more until we're into pro topics later on, which will probably be within the next couple of years here.
Nice. Very nice.
That is
So
nice.
I know that, I mean, that's needed, right? That's by so many people
Yeah.
that are in the industry, homeowners like me, you know, these college kids that may be thinking about being in the industry. Those courses are going to be good for them, right? They can watch them and go, oh, that's not for me. Or they can watch them and think, oh, that looks really cool. That's something I want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. But you're also thinking about, and tell us a little bit more about this, creating carpentry books for kids, which, you know, there's a few of them out there, but you want those books to be more of educational books, right? Not just to see themselves as that person doing being a welder or being a pipe fitter or being, whatever the trade might be. But you really want those to be educational courses for children. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of part of a longer game plan because honestly, because my hands are kind of so tied now, but writing is what I love to do. And virtually every word you've ever heard on my channel was written out, and I feel confident doing that. And I do have the bookstore background and a bit of a publishing background.
Yeah.
And I just think that there are a lot of people out there that still love books and wish that we still had a bit more focus around books in our culture. And I think the most underrepresented subject in all of publishing is the trades. And it's not just carpentry. I'm a carpenter, so obviously there would be some carpentry focus in the beginning. But in particular, the trades are the great kind of like invisible heroes of America or probably any country. And they are completely overlooked by the publishing industry. So what I really want is, yes, to teach, but more than anything, to show fascinating things within the trades, because I think there's just an endless amount. A lot of the stuff that we have in our houses these days are concepts that we have developed over 4,000 or 5,000 years, and our first plumbing was showing up like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Wooden structures were showing up like 10,000 years ago. There are just a lot of kind of amazing concepts that have guided like human history and brought us to where we are today that I think could be revealed in very fun, educational ways. And then there's so much future stuff that revolves around the trades with like our growing and expanding infrastructure that's constantly changing. Things like super tankers and ultra high rise towers and stuff like that. The engineering that goes behind it is fascinating.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, all of that stuff is built by people. Like all of it, people and machines, but it's like people and machines working together. I just see all those as great topics for publishing with so many good visuals and so many good stories in them that personally, I think it's what the world needs. And I think there's an audience for it out there that is not getting satisfied with anything that is currently given to kids to read. So, my later goals will be more publishing oriented than video oriented.
Nice. So, and the books that we find now in the library, I'm just going to say, I actually went and looked up a few books not long ago. They're so 40 years ago.
They
right?
are.
Or 50 years ago. So I'm literally reading this first chapter of How to Become a General Contractor, and I'm thinking, how old is this book?
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's definitely something that's needed. And you obviously the content that you're putting out on YouTube right now is awesome. But I'd love for you to share with the audience what you told us before and before we even started the interview. Why would somebody want to start these training and online courses versus YouTube, staying on YouTube? Because, from a perspective of people who don't publish and aren't famous on YouTube, right? We're thinking that's the best way to do it. Everybody says you're making money at it, blah, blah, blah. But you just explained to us it's a little different than that, right? And it makes it harder for you to teach by just using YouTube. So do you mind like just elaborating on that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of gets into the business of what I do now with content creation. And most content creators will tell you this. While we're all grateful for the platforms that have frankly enabled us to make these businesses, YouTube's my big one, and it is for a lot of people. But you look at Instagram, TikTok, even Snapchat. Now Microsoft is getting into content. It's shaky ground at best. It changes every year. All the algorithms evolve and change every year. What they focus on changes every year. And the longer you're in this, the more time you spend chasing algorithms and trying to anticipate virality than actually teaching anything. And I'm not saying you can't teach through these platforms, because you absolutely can. And YouTube is the best of them because it does focus more on long form. And YouTube really values information over as much as it values entertainment. But it's for somebody who wants to really learn this stuff, you have to, if you're just going to use YouTube, you have to like piece together your own education, and you're always limited by like however many thumbnails you can see on the screen here, and you have no idea what you're missing, what else is out there. You don't even know what topics that the creator you're watching has really covered extensively.
Good point.
And odds are those topics are really full of gaps, because they're probably like me, where they're shooting all over the board, exploring big ideas and missing all of the little intermediate and smaller ideas that glue all those big ideas together. And I know that's for people who are coming to YouTube to learn, that part can be very frustrating. And numerous viewers have told me that much. So courses totally flip that model on its head, where they're not necessarily built for the massive public at large, the way YouTube is. Instead, they're built for the concerned audience, a much smaller concerned audience that actually want to focus on education rather than entertainment. And they want to learn things, again, in that linear fashion. It's so much easier for them to get a 2 or 3 hour course, or sometimes mini courses that are only an hour, that come with supported materials and documents and blueprints or SketchUp plans, and focus on that stuff and study it and go like, there, I finally understand all of it. And I feel like I'm seeing this whole picture of this foundational topic. Now I can move on to the next one. And it's great if there's already a next one to move on to, which is why you do want to stack it more or less like a college curriculum or a K through 12 education, where every year and every module builds on the one that precedes it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought that was so interesting. Thank you for sharing that with the audience. There's
Absolutely.
probably a lot of people out there that don't really understand that concept, right?
Yeah.
We just
Or you don't think about it.
we
No.
don't think
Right?
about it. I know what I think about. If I need to learn how to start that generator, I'm going to YouTube, how do I start my
Yeah.
generator? And
Yeah.
I would even
Right.
put the model in there, right? But what if I wanted to learn how to maintain my generator? What if
Totally.
I wanted to learn, how much oil to mix with the gas?
Or
Like,
what one is the best one?
that's not going to pop up right after. Like, I'm going to have to go find another YouTube channel or another YouTube video. And I would have never put that together had you not explained that to us today.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
that's very
it's
cool.
kind of, it's the way that we're used to getting things these days, where we
Nuggets.
get bombarded. Yeah. With so many nuggets, and nuggets are great, but it has kind of been the death of like a formal education as we know it, but why
we
not?
know a
I
little
mean,
bit about a lot of stuff. So we
Yeah.
really know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And we have so much in our heads now that every nugget you get pushes like that last one out. You know what I mean? You're like, I remember what I was thinking 10 minutes ago. And that's hard for people who are like, no, I want the full picture. I kind of want it from the start in one way. And that's why courses are worth buying. They're not that expensive. Mine are not that expensive. They're generally going to retail in like the $150 range. And you get like hours of content for that, and access to other free things that we have. So they're really, a modest fee when you look at any other educational structure that you're going to pay a lot for teachers and campuses and everything.
Yes.
This right here is your campus. This computer is your campus. This person's your teacher, and you can just follow the trail from A to Z with this one person in this one place.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the education and the importance of it, and even how we need to learn it and see it. Now we're going to talk about a little bit about the people. And, of course, Christi and I, that's a big part of why we started this Women Talk Construction, was just to help women understand that they can do anything and they can transition, but to attract and retain more people for construction. In fact, we recently did a TEDx talk at Clemson, and we talked about this because we need 501,000 more people in construction. And
Right now.
and the problem is a lot of people are retiring. All this. They're retiring, or they can't do it anymore. And I think actually some companies are actually having to bring them back as 1099s, or just to have them help the younger entries coming in, to help them understand how to do it the right way, or whatever the process is. So tell us your idea of the resurgence of the trades. How do you feel it's going?
I actually feel at this point that it's going quite well. And
Yay!
I know. And that's different from how I felt over the last few years, certainly different from how I felt when I kind of got out of day-to-day labor four plus years ago myself. I was one of those people that got injured out. A lot of people know that about my story. I had I had a knee problem that was never going to get better again. Had to get a bunch of cartilage taken out of my knee, and it just limits some of my mobility. And unfortunately, it limits all my mobility that let me be a carpenter. So that's why I got into content creation. And I had pretty grim views about, especially where carpentry was going back then, because we got hit harder than any other trade. And I've talked about that before. But I don't know exactly when or why it happened, but we hit some turning point probably in the last year and a half or 2 years. And I think a lot of it had to do with media attention, where mostly through news outlets, but not exclusively, where you're just seeing more and more talk about, especially getting younger people into the trades. And we've had a bunch of initiatives come up on a state scale and federal scale to begin to sort of promote that. It's like not as widespread as it needs to be yet, but I just see it all as sort of building blocks that like we're finally through the bottom point. And I think there's enough attention paid to it now that people are aware of it, which was like the big thing. People just weren't even aware they could be tradespeople like 5 years ago. Whereas it's now with our 4-year colleges kind of falling on hard times, to be honest. Our trade schools are getting much more positive views from people. And since there's money here, because there's always been money here and it's getting better all the time as our older tradespeople age out. Now people will follow money. If they won't follow influence, they will follow money.
That's how I got into it. The money was good.
That's why I got back into it, and I just enjoyed doing it. So I think now all the recipes kind of working where people are just kind of getting more and more excited about it, taking kind of more pride in it again. And I'm sure social media has not hurt.
Yeah, and the career centers, I think they're the ones, at least near us, like they're finding it so easy to attract the next generation to them because that's, they no longer have shop in the high schools. They have to go to the career center. But they're actually, one ACTC, I think, is actually having to turn down kids because
they have more applications than they can get every single year.
Yeah.
How awesome is that? And they have a lot of females.
It's great. And I think you're going to see more of that. We're on the Women Talk Construction podcast. I think now is when you're seeing the point where we're going to see a lot more women entering the trade force. And I'm not surprised that they're having to turn people away. One, because interest is up, but two, because it's not like a typical college class where you can keep cramming people in. Right. Because we have a physical aspect of what we do, it's a bit more like med school, where you essentially need like laboratories. You need places where people can get their hands dirty, hold tools. And for that reason, we just all around need more of them to hold all the people that are going to come in and learn this stuff. And then we need the teachers that will teach it person by person down in the classroom setting, because that's where the difference is really made. I like to think my part will be important as I go along, but it's not nearly as important as the person who's there every day actually mentoring people through the process of learning these things. So
Hill Electric, Angela works for a company called Hill Electric, and they're really good at staying very involved in career centers like ACTC and actually having conversations with these kids regularly. And I think that's really going to be the key to us bringing more people in. 84 Lumber does a lot of that in different areas. And it really is the key to those kids like considering a role in the industry. So yeah, for sure. The career centers are really important.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
So Ethan, thank you so much for being on again today.
Thank you.
I'm just going to tell the audience, like we spent 15 minutes, maybe a little longer with Ethan, and he like kind of gave us some really good tips for us and our YouTube channel. And we definitely needed them. We are not at 895,000 followers, but we are at 187. And so he gave us some ideas on what we can do to be better. So we thank you for that. But also, we want our audience to know how to get a hold of you. If, they want to find out more about your content, if they want to find your YouTube channel, whatever it is that you would like our audience to reach out to you for, please let them know right now.
Or someday be part of your kids' book. right?
Yeah,
maybe
Help you with
so.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
God
be
willing.
looking for sponsors for that, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we get to that point, absolutely, I'll bring them all in the tent, and I would love to talk to all of them. But right now, you can find me on the Honest Carpenter YouTube channel. I've had once again a couple weeks off to deal with more of this shop stuff, but I'm about to go into a really prolonged slate of content, and I'm probably going to be focusing more on the basics these days for like the foreseeable future. And that kind of coincides with what we're doing at thehonestcarpenter.com, which is my website where you can find everything course related. You can find our blog posts. We do post our videos there as well. And then we have additional content that we're constantly kind of adding to. It's free stuff, free videos, free guides. But everything associated with me, you search The Honest Carpenter, you're going to find it. And it's all headquartered at thehonestcarpenter.com.
Awesome. Thank you for being on
Yay.
today and for
Absolutely.
inspiring
Yes,
all of
thank you,
us
Ethan.
Thank you. I
and for
appreciate it.
making such a big impact in our industry. We appreciate you.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
great
much.
day.
You too. Thanks. Appreciate it.